All good.
Just so I can set my phone on something.
For the folks that have joined us, this is where Will and I usually do our Zooms, down in Will's basement. We started during iRacing and then have continued here now that we're back on track.
Yeah, you know my house pretty well now.
I know, it's kind of creepy considering I've never been there.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks everybody for joining us. I'm Kate Davis from Indy Car PR, and as you can see, we've been joined by Will Pepper. Thank you very much for joining us, Will. I'll give a couple of fun facts off the top. I know some of you have submitted questions already, and I see some in the chat as well. So really quickly, you guys should know that Team Penske is the winningest team on the streets of St. Pete with 9 victories. Will has 2 of those in 2010 and 2014. And the winner at the St. Petersburg race has gone on to win the series championship 5 times, including Will in 2014. Oh, Will, we lost your video, bud. Oh, there we go. Will has record 8 pole positions for the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Pete, including last year in 2019. So, Will, thanks for joining us. Tell us how excited you are to get back to the streets of St. Pete. It'll be our only street course this year, in this crazy year of 2020, but you've obviously had a lot of success there. Talk about how excited you are to go back to St. Pete.
Yeah, very excited. One of my favorite tracks. Had a lot of success there. I've had 2 wins and a lot of pole positions. And it's just really, really cool that we can have 20,000 fans there each day. I think that's what everyone's excited about. It makes the atmosphere so much better than what it has been. To see fans in the stands at Indianapolis was awesome. And I don't know what the rules are, if they'll be allowed around the paddock at St. Pete, but if so, they'll be really cool to interact with them again. And it's just a great venue. It doesn't matter what time of the year. Obviously, the weather's going to be nice down there. We hope no rain, but temperature-wise, it's going to be fantastic. So, really looking forward to racing there.
Me too. I'm excited to get back there. It seems like it was years ago that we were down there in March before the reschedule. So I'm excited to get back down there as well. Let's take some questions from the fans. First one is from Zenon K. And they ask, given your qualifying supremacy at St. Pete, which corner do you gain the most time in?
There's been a few pole positions where I have gained all my time, not all of my time, but I have gained that, half tenth or a tenth on my teammate Elio Castroneves and I think Newgarden in turn 10, which is the last real corner before the timing line. So seem to get turn 10. It's pretty straightforward corner, but seem to get the complex from 4 all the way to 9 is where you can make significant time. It's pretty technical. Each corner leads into another, so there's compromise there. And it's working the right compromise out to get that whole, we call it the Mickey Mouse section, we get that whole section right.
Awesome. All right, we'll continue on. Brian M. asks, you had success at St. Pete in the past. What do you like best about the track and what do you find the most challenging? You might have just answered that, but is there a part that you think is the most challenging?
It is just overall a pretty challenging street course because it feels pretty tight. There's no real room for error. I just like the flow of the circuit because pretty much every corner leads into another complex. You think about turn 1, 2 leads into 3. Turn 1 leads into 2 and 3. And 4 leads into that whole complex all the way to 9. So, and then you've got the, turn 11, kind of 12 leading to that 13 turn. So I really like the flow of it. It's just one of my favorite street courses. I like street courses because you have walls and it's a very definitive line between not touching and touching. So you can kind of be absolutely inch perfect, let's say millimeter perfect, when you're really on it for a qualifying lap.
Well, segueing from that, Carolyn P asks, of the many road races, which one is the most difficult, would you say?
I would say between Mid-Ohio and Road America, very difficult. And you could put Laguna into that just because of the grip level. It's a low grip. You don't get a constant grip all the way around the track. So it makes it very difficult to get the car set up in a good window, and it makes it very difficult to feel where the car's at, like during a run. They're difficult. I like it for that reason. I like Indy Car for that reason. Whereas Formula One race on perfectly smooth new asphalt every weekend, we race on so many different grip levels and so many different tracks. We're never ever, you just got such a mix. It's very difficult to be great over a whole season.
We have another one that I think kind of speaks to what you were talking about with the different surfaces. David H asks, how do you pick your tire strategy?
That's a good question. The tire strategy, obviously for qualifying, it's pretty straightforward, but the race, there's always this, should we start on reds? And if we do, should they be new or used reds? I had too many bad experiences on starting on used. So for the most part, I always start on new because you really don't know how the degradation is going to go. And then there's the question of whether you start on reds or blacks. So blacks, if I start any further back than 6, I'd very much consider starting on blacks. It puts you on a different strategy to the others, and you have the best chance of making ground just by being a bit different.
In our final race of the year, your teammate Joseph is in the hunt for the championship. We have a question from Mark R and from Michael Carroll. To the extent that you can share, how could you help your teammate in St. Pete?
It's simply all of us in Penske needs to be between Joseph and Dixon. That's simply the best way that we can help. That's it. And obviously then there's, setup and that sort of thing that he can learn off us if he's not right on the pace. So, hopefully one of us is leading the charge there. And, really it's up to him to put it all together, which I'm sure he's going to absolutely turn up with his A game. And, then the rest is really about whether Dixon has a good or a bad weekend.
So I learned a stat today that I'll share with you and everyone else. It's a little daunting, but there are over 19,872 scenarios for the championship race between Dixon and Newgarden, and 198 of them have Newgarden winning by 1 point. So that's a lot of different scenarios that could play into the race next week.
That certainly is, and this is Indy Car, so anything can happen.
That's right.
I'm sure it's going to come down to the last lap, and it's never simple. It's never simple.
But that's why we run the races, right?
It's kind of amazing the points lead that Dixon had, and then it's kind of whittled away. But that seems to always be the case.
We have another question from the chat, and it says, we are big in karting, and we have heard that you now have your own chassis. Good stuff. This is from US Japper 23. It says, what are your long-term plans for your karting business and involvement?
Yeah, we have our kart, the WPK Will Power Kart. Actually, we're racing this weekend at GoPro for a US PKS race, big event. And basically, we are trying to help get to a point where we can help young drivers bridge that gap from karts to cars. And So far we've just been selling them. Selling quite a few at the moment. They're very fast. They're great karts, and once we get some momentum and get enough interest and sponsorship, we can start helping drivers, bridge that gap. Which we actually have helped some drivers anyway. Run them in our karts for free. But it's something I really enjoy. It's such a big part of motorsport. Every single driver in Indy Car was a karting champion and race karts. Every single driver in Formula One, in DTM, in any road racing series, they all race karts. A huge part of the ladder system. And I love karting myself. I still race. I'm going to go out there tomorrow and run around with those guys in testing. And in the off season, I'll do some races as well. It's just such a great form of motorsport, such a great learning platform.
And if you guys follow Will on Instagram, every now and then he'll post from his karting adventures as well. So please tune into that. All right, well, let's go back to some other questions. We have one from Michael Carroll, and it says, the schedule for St. Pete has indicated that we aren't on track on Friday. How big of an impact does that have for you on a street course like St. Pete?
Depends on how you roll off the truck. I've really enjoyed the short weekends this year because I can get on it so quickly and get the car sorted really quickly. I think it's kind of benefited us. But maybe, some of these other teams have great street course cars. So only having, I think it's an hour and a half practice, just straight up practice. I mean, that's a lot of time. It's much better when it's split up and you can go back and, kind of talk and go through all the data with your engineer and understand what you can do with changes. But it is what it is. And I wouldn't mind if they said we're just doing 2-day weekends all next year and we just have 1 hour of practice and we go straight to qualifying. I mean, that would actually be fine with me.
All right, we'll take another question. This one's from MJS009. Do you see any similarities between the old 2007 Vegas Grand Prix street course compared to St. Pete?
No, not really, actually. That Vegas track had a lot of 90-degree corners. It was really cool. So a very, very flowy track. That was an amazing street course, and it was much longer as well. And they resurfaced it. It was a very, very, very cool street course. That would have been awesome to keep that up. But St. Pete's definitely, tougher and definitely a tighter track, but a great street course. St. Pete is a very enjoyable track.
Here's a question from Richard B, specifically about the runway. How easy is it to pass on the runway? Wasn't Le Mans once partially on a runway as well?
The problem with the runway is the paint at the end of the straight. So when you try to pass on with the inside, often you'll lock tires up on the paint because there's no rubber laid there. But it is very wide, and it's really no problems with it. It's a great venue, and you want a wide, long front straight like they have. Certainly good for starts and restarts and racing.
So here's another question in the chat. It's from Zenon, and essentially it says, with Mr. Penske becoming the owner of both of our bosses this year, how has that changed your interaction with him on a race-to-race basis?
You just don't see him as much. He's so busy. He used to always be hanging out in what we call RP1, which is like a big trailer for him. And he's really never there anymore. He's obviously running the series, and the speedway is his main focus. So it's he's just simply just a incredibly busy man.
He is, and he's incredibly passionate about not just the sport, but the speedway across the street as well. It's been fun to watch him. This is also the end of the first year of the aeroscreen. What's that been like, Ryan, you asked? What improvements would you like to see, and what's it been like having it this first year?
I think it's just an amazing advancement in safety, and it really hasn't affected the way that we see. It did affect the handling of the car, but it actually made it a bit nicer to drive, and probably creates a bit more deg as well, which makes for good racing. But I know that the series will make some adjustments for Indianapolis next year to make the racing closer and make it a lot easier to pass. So for a first year, just to roll that out with really no issues, it's been an amazing advancement in safety. Like, I can't tell you how big that is. When you think about the last 2 fatalities in Indy Car, they probably would have been prevented with this screen.
Yeah, and we also didn't get a lot of testing at the beginning of the season either because of the pandemic. We went to COTA in February, and then, the next time you guys were on the track was Texas. So I agree. I think you guys have done an awesome job with the great racing in the first year with that aeroscreen. And I know it's probably saved a few drivers' lives, like what we saw in Iowa earlier this year with that crazy crash.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just so many reasons why that screen is better. Even the fire that James Davison had in Indianapolis, when the wind just was blowing, it would have been right in his face. He could just sit there and wait for the safety crew to get to him because the screen protected him from the fire. So just a huge advancement. I can't thank IndyCar enough. Jay Fry and the whole team that just got behind that and made it happen quickly, and it was done properly. So really good effort.
Yeah, they're really proud of it as well. All right, here's another question in the chat. What are your thoughts on Jimmy Johnson participating in the road courses next year?
Yeah, I think obviously he's got to do a bit of testing and get used to the car and the physicality of it. But I think it's been a dream of his to come and race IndyCar on, like he says, a bucket list deal. I see him out of the go-kart track from time to time, getting used to something pretty nimble and quick in change of direction. So I think everyone's pretty happy that he's coming into the series. Obviously an absolute legend of motorsport, and in particular NASCAR, to achieve what he's achieved is really amazing in the time that he's done it. So very happy to have him in the series.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one too. All right, we have time for just a couple more questions. Victor T asks, which year had your favorite Indy car to drive? If you had to pick one of the cars to drive, which year would it be?
I really enjoyed the 2010-11 car, or 2008 through to 11 is when I was in that. I liked that car, I really did. But probably the best Indy car I drove was in 07, the Champ car. Big horsepower, really, really, really nice car. Really nice car. 7-speed gearbox, pretty light. Very nice.
Awesome. And you actually just answered Greg Z's question about that very thing. All right, last one. What do you like most about your time spent in the Bay Area, or in the Tampa Bay area?
What was the question? What do I like most about?
What do you like most about your time spent in the Tampa St. Pete area?
I actually like the town of St. Pete. I haven't been to the beach for a long time. I used to go down to the beach, at the beginning of the weekend. Maybe I'll do it this year. But really, I like the atmosphere. It's usually the first race of the season, so you're excited to be there. And the temperature's great. And everyone's kind of in a good mood because it's the first race of the year, and everyone's very optimistic. They haven't had any bad races to dwell on yet. So it's just kind of getting back with the whole group, and obviously a lot of people in the paddock and everything, and it's a place that I really look forward to going to every year.
Well, at least this year, our time between St. Pete visits hopefully won't be very long because we'll be back in March as well. Well, that's going to wrap up our chat for today. Thank you so much for joining. Fans on the chat, tickets go on sale at 2 p.m. today, limited general admission tickets. So make sure to check that out, and make sure to watch Will next week at the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg on NBC. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.